Welcome to part 2 of the Stuffing Your Feelings podcast number 2 of the Honesty Project. I'm Chris Templeton, the founder of Oh, the Stories We Tell, and we hope you're enjoying this and that you enjoy part 2. We'd love a thumbs up and we'd love to have you subscribe, and we would more than anything else like your feedback on what you thought of the video and if you've got suggestions about what we should be doing on our end. Thanks again. Here's part 2 of podcast number 2. For me, it's about creating that space and helping, recognizing that I know the answer at some level, recognizing that I have a real strong default to go into that negative little me place. And when I start to recognize not only that I have it and that others have it, I also recognize that when I come down and I'm below that line of thoughts where thoughts serve me, I also have the ability to really bring people down. But getting to that point, it's tough, isn't it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's really tough, and I'll give you an example, real life work example. I was working on a client's project, and they had asked in their thought document that they had provided for a very specific type of ad. There's, depending on what you're using, like in Facebook, there's video ads and there's single image ads and there's carousel ads and there's slideshow ads, and there's all of these different styles, and they work for different applications. And so the client had asked for a very specific ad, the style that I was confused over. I didn't know why they asked for it. And I talked to my boss. My boss is like, hey, let's have a meeting with them. I'm like, great idea. So we get into the meeting with the client, and for some reason that question doesn't come up first. We start talking about content. Well, I had written content toward the style that they had asked for, and we kind of come at it backwards. And then I'm like, well, here's this style and here's this content, but I'm struggling to make it work. And the client was like, well, then why did you use that? And so I was like, because it was something you asked for, and I kind of sounded like that, without, going, well, that's why we were having the meeting, because I didn't understand that. But right away, I'm like, I didn't want to do that ad. And I'm not an immature person, so I find it a little fascinating and a little negative that sometimes that's where I roll from. I'm a loving person. I created their content with 100% focus on something that would help them. I didn't just do it because they asked for it. I mean, I was really invested. But maybe that's back to your comment of I cared.
Well, and I think that the other thing to keep in mind is that you now have the tool of recognizing when somebody, for the most part, you're probably 90% good at identifying when somebody else is in little me mode. And when I can just say, oh, wait a minute, they're in little me mode. I know I want to go to little me mode, and I know it's not going to serve me. One of the things that's been really helpful for me over the years, and it drives people that are in little me mode, coworkers, crazy, is I'll say, oh, I'm so sorry I didn't understand. Or what I'll say something along the lines of, I'm sorry I didn't understand your instructions, or I own what's theirs. Why? What's the value of that? Why, and somebody comes to me and says, like that person did to you, well, then why did you do that way? I would say something along the lines of, I was trying to meet what I thought were your needs. And I obviously I blew it. And so we are our little self is so against that idea. Like, are you kidding me? It's that guy's fault. But it doesn't serve us to respond that way. So I all the time will say, oh my God, I'm sorry I didn't understand that. I'm sorry I missed that. Even if I'm clear that I've sent something off that they should have read and should have done, when I say, oh my God, I'm sorry that the email didn't make sense to you. The beauty of it is, when you're in Little Me land, we thrive in Little Me land on resistance. Like, think about when your kid gives you a hard time and you give them a hard time back, and then they give you a hard time, and it's just climbing and climbing.
Yes.
And so one of the things that's so important about that approach of saying, oh my God, I misunderstood, and owning it, even if it's not yours to own, is it helps them to come back down and to go to a more authentic place.
So I hear what you're saying. Mm-hmm. I get this strategy, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
Okay. For women, I'm going to stereotype, in business, sometimes continuing to accept other people's as your own puts you in a weaker position in the business, in your little business community, which sometimes leads you to not be considered for promotions, to be the scapegoat of the group because you're the one that de-escalates the confrontation. When other people are really good at escalating the confrontation. And there is some sort of weird perception sometimes where, and I'm not 100% in this camp, but aggression from men is considered powerful. Aggression from women is considered bitchy. So how does that come in?
Well, for me, first of all, I think men that are dicks are dicks. Yeah. I think women that are pushy are pushy, and I don't like it from either side. So that, first of all, that's that piece. I want people to work together in a way that serves all of them. So in answer to your question, when I own something that's yours, my whole goal is to get, and what happens often, and I'm not, and I may have phrased it wrong. This is the exact strategy I'm talking about. I may have phrased it wrong to you. What I'm saying is, you give them the ability to come down by saying, well, maybe I misunderstood something. But the next thing that absolutely has to happen, whether it's on the call or in an email or a follow-up, is clarification. Help me to be clear. And then, saying to somebody, following up and saying in an email or something, I noticed you were really frustrated on the call, and I don't want to do anything to frustrate you. So let's figure out how to get clear on it. I think of Sheryl Sandberg's leaning in. You still need to lean in, but you can do it in a way that doesn't create other people going into Little Me land as a result. Instead, that helps to bring them down. So if you are, so I'm not saying that you own it, it's yours to own. I'm saying you own it in the sense that you're not going to put it on their plate. You're going to let them figure out that it's on their plate.
Yeah, no. And it's tricky. And, many of the things that I've heard you talk about in this podcast and the last one that we worked on is tools of leadership. And I love leadership. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I like these conversations between us, is because overall I'm very good in this role. But I have my moments where I fall apart. And maybe it's because I didn't get enough sleep the night before, or maybe I've just had coffee and I missed my lunch, and I'm an excellent example of hangry, an excellent example of that. But I'm listening to you talk about, this working with people that absolutely cross your regular boundaries. And then two, allowing for this de-escalation, especially we've all been subjected to so many conference calls lately on the internet, so many people that are under stress, so many people that are worried on a lot of levels. So it's really easy for people to become fearful, cranky, needing to have somebody else to blame for things that might put them in a more precarious position. Yeah. So I love listening to this. I love being able to think about this in a way that gives me these strategies, that that stepping back, that thinking about where they're at, thinking about where I'm at. One of the things I'd love to talk to you about, because I've noticed over the years, again, back to my confidence problem, is that with some people and in some environments, my confidence is able to bloom, and in other places it's not. And I mentioned to you that I really would like to have my confidence blooming all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that some of the stories we tell might play into that.
I guarantee you they do. Why don't we do that on the next podcast?
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay, excellent. So just to wrap up, let me just wrap up with one thing. Let me share my screen. You said something that was really, really important, and a bunch of stuff, but here's the thing. Our goal is always to be, no, not always. Our goal is to be down here. We can't do it all the time. And when you have people that are up here and you want to run up here, your whole goal as a leader, from a leadership standpoint, whether you're an individual contributor, a manager, or a CEO, is to have people working down here. They can be on the negative side, frustration, that sort of thing. But all we're trying to do is understand that we go up here, but where we want to be is down here. And leadership is, oh, you just learned something. Leadership is all about getting people down into this area. So when you start to incorporate those models into your head, you're like, oh my God, I'm not going to run up here. I'm going to do my very best to stay right here. Just a little pissed, right? And then
Yeah.
I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to find a way to get from here to here, and then I'm going to respond, and I'm going to have you own what you've done. I'm going to have you be accountable for it, but in a way that you can hear it, because I'm coming from a place where I am working from a place that it serves me, and as a result, it's going to serve you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I would wrap up kind of what we're talking about so far. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I will say one of my favorite sort of leadership philosophies, and I know it's a quote from someone at some point, has to do with leadership being taking responsibility for everything that goes wrong and giving away all of the credit to your team, whom absolutely deserve it. And I've always believed that, and I actually love that strategy. There's a lot of fulfilling developments that come from that, not to mention a team that just usually embraces that and kills it because they don't feel threatened. They perform at their highest level. Their creativity is allowed to come out, and they soar, and the reward for that is phenomenal.
Oh my God. Think about it, Melody. The workplaces that it creates, how this applies to raising kids or being with friends. That's the other thing that's so nice about this, is it's universal in its application. There's no place in terms of interpersonal relationships, as well as self regulation and figuring this stuff out, that this model does not work. I challenge anybody to show me where this doesn't work. I want to see it because I want to see if I'm wrong, but I haven't found a place that this doesn't work. So yeah, I haven't found a place that this works at all. So this is all bullshit. No. Anyway, so let's wrap this one up. Melody, you are awesome. Thanks for your honesty and being willing to look at this stuff. It's not easy, is it? But you know what? When we start to quit stuffing our feelings, son of a gun, there's something there that makes it easier and more fulfilling and all that stuff. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I know we've got a lot of different topics that we're kind of out there, and I love that the confidence will potentially be the next one. One of the things that I heard the other day, because I'm doing some meditation stuff that's out there online right now that's free, and exercise, all these gifts to myself that I'm trying to give, was talking about. And this was one of the things that I really resonated with your stuff about the stories, because I'm as soon as something pisses me off or hurts me, I start a dialogue in my head about it. And the thing that came up was the past. If we can get to the point where we recognize the past is unchangeable, and that these stories that we're trying to tell ourselves are all a version of the past that was changed the way we want it to be.
Yep.
So I think there's probably like that concept definitely tying in.
Thanks very much for watching the second part of podcast number 2 on stuffing your feelings. We hope you found it valuable. We'd love a thumbs up, and even better, a subscribe. But more than that, we want your feedback, your comments, your suggestions about how you'd like to see us move forward with this project. We've got a bunch more that we're in post-production on, but we still look for your feedback. Thanks again for watching. Take care.